Welcome back to Silent Paws and Brave Hearts. The morning sun broke soft and golden over Millstone Ridge, West Virginia, casting long shadows across brick storefronts that had stood for generations. The air smelled of dew and distant wood smoke, and somewhere down Main Street a church bell rang, once, twice, 3 times, marking the hour with a sound that felt more like memory than music. Samuel Granger heard it through the open window of his truck. He was 61 years old, silver-haired and square-shouldered, though his body moved with the careful deliberation of a man who had learned to respect his limits. His hands, scarred and weathered, rested lightly on the steering wheel. Deep lines framed his eyes, lines earned in deserts and mountains, in places where silence meant survival and hesitation meant death. A faded trident tattoo rested beneath his sleeve, rarely seen, never mentioned. Sam had driven through a dozen towns like this one over the past year, searching for something he couldn't quite name. Peace, maybe. Quiet. A place where the weight he carried, 30 years of service, of missions that never made the news, of brothers lost and promises kept, might finally feel lighter. Millstone Ridge looked like it could be that place, but looks, Sam knew, could lie. Beside him in the passenger seat sat Bear, a Belgian Malinois with a graying muzzle and dark, intelligent eyes that missed nothing. Bear was nearly 9 years old now, moving with the controlled grace of a working dog who had never forgotten his training. A small scar notched his left ear, a reminder of Kandahar, of the IED that should have killed them both. Bear had saved Sam's life that day. Sam had carried him 3 miles through enemy territory with a dislocated shoulder and a leg that wouldn't stop bleeding. They didn't talk about it. They didn't need to. "What do you think, boy?" Sam asked quietly, looking out at the sleepy mountain town. "This the one?" Bear's tail thumped once against the seat. Sam allowed himself a small smile, the kind that didn't quite reach his eyes, but meant something anyway. "Yeah," he whispered. "Me too." He parked outside the Cornerstone Diner, a low-slung building with faded yellow paint and a neon sign that flickered even in daylight. Through the window, he could see vinyl booths, chrome-edged tables, and a waitress moving between them with the efficiency of someone who had done this 1,000 times before. Inside, the diner smelled like bacon grease and coffee, comforting and familiar. A few heads turned when Sam walked in, eyes lingering on the tall, quiet man and the dog at his side. No one spoke. No one smiled. Conversations didn't stop. They just got quieter, like someone had turned down the volume on the whole room. The waitress, her name tag read Martha, looked up from behind the counter. She was younger than Sam, maybe late 30s, with honey-colored hair pulled back in a ponytail and tired eyes that had learned to guard themselves. "Anywhere you like," she said, her voice warm but careful. Sam nodded and chose a booth near the back corner, where the wall met the window. Old habit. He could see the door, the street, the whole room. Bear slid beneath the table and lay down, silent and still. Martha brought coffee without asking, setting it down gently. "Thank you, ma'am," Sam said, his voice low and respectful. She smiled briefly, and something in her eyes softened. "You just passing through?" "Thinking about staying a while, if the town's agreeable." Martha's smile faded just slightly, and she glanced toward the window. "It's a quiet place. People keep to themselves mostly." There was something in the way she said it, a warning wrapped in politeness. Sam noticed. He always noticed. Sam sipped his coffee and watched the town wake up. Pickup trucks rolled past. A man swept the sidewalk outside the hardware store. Everything moved slowly, gently, like a place that had forgotten how to hurry. But beneath it all, Sam felt something else. A tension, a carefulness, the kind of silence that wasn't peaceful, it was practiced. Deputy Travis Holt walked into the diner at 8:47 a.m. The change was immediate. Conversation stopped mid-sentence, eyes dropped to plates. Even the sound of silverware seemed to soften. Travis was a thick-necked man in his mid-40s, with a uniform that fit too tight across the shoulders, and a confidence that came not from respect, but from repetition. Behind him followed Deputy Lane Mercer, younger, thinner, eyes always checking Travis before reacting. The room shifted when they entered, like a flock of birds sensing a hawk. Martha's shoulders stiffened as she reached for the coffee pot. Her hand trembled just once, barely visible, before she steadied it. Travis noticed Sam immediately. His gaze lingered on the old man in the back corner, then dropped to the dog beneath the table. His smile sharpened. "Ma'am?" Travis said loudly, though Martha was only 2 feet away. "Health code says no animals in food establishments." Martha's knuckles went white around the coffee pot handle. He's not causing any trouble, Travis," she said quietly. "Didn't ask if he was causing trouble," Travis replied, settling into the corner booth, his booth, the one everyone knew to leave empty. Asked if he knew the rules. Sam looked up slowly. His eyes were calm, steady, the pale gray blue of winter sky, clear and cold and utterly unreadable. "Service dog," Sam said simply. Travis's smile didn't reach his eyes. "That right? You got papers for that, old-timer?" Sam held his gaze for a long moment, then reached into his jacket with slow, deliberate movements and pulled out a folded document. He didn't stand, didn't raise his voice, just slid it across the table. Deputy Mercer picked it up, glanced at it, then handed it back. "Looks fine," Mercer muttered. Travis said nothing, but his jaw tightened, and something dark flickered behind his eyes, something that didn't like being checked. He picked up his coffee cup slowly, took a long sip, then set it down too close to the edge of the table. It tipped. Hot liquid splashed across the floor, inches from where Bear lay. Bear's muscles coiled instantly, but he didn't move, didn't bark, because Sam's hand had already dropped beneath the table, resting gently on Bear's shoulder. "Easy," Sam whispered. "Easy, boy. Not worth it." Bear relaxed, but his eyes stayed locked on Travis. Travis watched it all with a slow, satisfied grin. "Accidents happen," he said. "Hope your dog's okay." Martha appeared instantly with a rag, kneeling quickly to clean the spill. Her hands shook, and Sam saw a bruise on her wrist, faded yellow-green, old but not forgotten. Sam met Travis's eyes one more time, and in that moment, something unspoken passed between them. Recognition. Sam had seen men like Travis before, different uniforms, different countries, same disease. Over the next 2 weeks, Sam stayed in Millstone Ridge. He rented a small farmhouse on the edge of town, a white clapboard place with a sagging porch and a yard full of wildflowers that nobody had tended in years. Bear loved it there, lying in the sun for hours, at peace in a way Sam hadn't seen in years. But Sam couldn't rest. Every day he walked the town with Bear at his side, watching. He saw the way business owners handed over cash without receipts, faces resigned and pale. He saw a young mother pulled over for a broken taillight that wasn't broken, her hands shaking as she signed the ticket, her toddler crying in the back seat. He saw the way people crossed the street when a cruiser rolled past, the way conversations stopped, the way eyes dropped. This wasn't a town with a few bad apples. This was a tree that had rotted from the root. One evening, Sam sat on his porch as the sun bled orange across the mountains. Bear lay beside him, head resting on his paws. He thought about leaving. He'd done his part, 30 years of service, he'd earned his peace. But then he thought about Martha's trembling hands, the bruise on her wrist, the way Frank Dawson, an elderly man from the diner, had handed over $20 just to avoid trouble, humiliation carved into every line of his face. That night, Sam opened a lockbox he hadn't touched in months. Inside was a small body camera, military grade, discreet, nearly invisible. He held it in his palm, the weight of it familiar and damning. He had promised no more missions. But this wasn't a mission. This was witness. Sam knelt beside Bear, who looked up at him with those dark, trusting eyes. "I need you to do something for me, boy," Sam said quietly. "Just watch, that's all. Just watch." He clipped the camera carefully into Bear's harness, just beneath the collar, hidden in the thick fur. Bear's tail wagged once. Sam's throat tightened. "Good boy. You're such a good boy." The camera recorded everything. Over the next 10 days, Bear walked through Millstone Ridge with Sam, silent and faithful, capturing what fear had hidden for years. Soft threats delivered in parking lots. Cash passed between hands in broad daylight. Frank Dawson, 74 years old, bent with arthritis, handing over money for protection he never asked for. Martha, approached by Deputy Mercer late one night, who leaned too close, spoke too quietly, and left her shaking. Bear captured it all. Every night, Sam reviewed the footage on his laptop, his face expressionless in the cold blue glow. His hands never shook, his breathing never quickened, but his jaw tightened with every frame. Sunday morning came soft and bright. The Cornerstone Diner filled early, families in church clothes, retirees sharing bacon and gossip, children coloring on paper mats. The smell of fresh coffee and warm syrup hung in the air. The corner booth sat empty. Everyone knew to leave it that way. Sam walked in with Bear at exactly 9:15 a.m. and sat down in the corner booth. The room went silent. Forks stopped mid-air. Conversations died. Martha froze mid-pour, her eyes wide. "Sam," she whispered urgently, "you can't. That's their—" "I know," Sam said gently. "It's okay, Martha." "It's not okay," she hissed, her voice breaking. "Please, just move." But Sam didn't move. And at 9:23 a.m., Deputy Travis Holt walked through the door. His face flushed red when he saw Sam. His hand dropped to his belt, fingers drumming against the radio. The entire diner held its breath. Travis crossed the room slowly, deliberately. "You're in the wrong seat, old man," he said, his voice low and dangerous. Sam looked up, his expression calm. "Booth was empty," Sam said quietly. "Thought it was first come, first served." Travis leaned down, planting both hands on the table, his face inches from Sam's. "I'm asking you nicely," he said. "Move." Sam held his gaze, unflinching. "No," he said simply. The word hung in the air like a thunderclap. No one in Millstone Ridge had said no to Travis Holt in 15 years. And then, quietly, slowly, Frank Dawson stood up. He was 74 years old, bent with arthritis, hands trembling, but his voice, when he spoke, was steady. "Leave him alone, Travis." The diner gasped. Travis turned, stunned. "What did you say?" Frank's voice cracked, but he didn't sit down. "I said, leave him alone." Tears gathered in his eyes, but his chin lifted. "We're tired, Travis. All of us. We're so tired." A woman in the back booth stood up next. then the hardware store owner, then Martha, trembling but standing, her daughter's hand clutched tight in hers. One by one, the people of Millstone Ridge stood, not with weapons, not with threats, just stood. Travis's face went purple with rage. He moved fast and shoved Frank hard in the chest. The old man stumbled backward, hitting the edge of a table, and went down hard. Martha screamed, and Bear, loyal, patient Bear, surged to his feet, a low, grumbling growl tearing from his chest, teeth bared. Sam's hand shot out, gripping Bear's collar. "No," he commanded quietly. "Stand down." Bear obeyed instantly, but his eyes never left Travis. Sam stood slowly, his full height unfolding. He didn't raise his voice, didn't threaten. He just looked at Travis the way a man looks at something he's measured and found completely wanting. "You just made a mistake," Sam said softly. "A big one." 20 minutes later, Sam was in handcuffs. Bear was taken outside, leashed to a post, pacing and whining. In the sheriff's office, Sheriff Alan Brewster sat behind a scarred wooden desk. He was in his 60s, gray-haired, with cold eyes that had stopped caring about right and wrong a long time ago. "You're new here," Brewster said, leaning back, "so maybe you don't understand how things work."
Sam said nothing. "You leave town today," Brewster said flatly. "Right now. Take your dog, forget what you saw, and we forget this ever happened." Sam took a slow breath. "I'll leave," he said quietly. Brewster smiled. "Smart man. But first," Sam continued, "you should know something." Brewster's smile faded. "Bear has been wearing a camera for 2 weeks," Sam said, watching realization dawn in the sheriff's eyes. "Every shakedown, every threat, every illegal stop, it's all recorded, time-stamped, high definition." The room went deathly silent. "And where exactly is this footage?" Brewster whispered. Sam allowed himself the smallest hint of a smile. "Already uploaded," he said. "Started the moment you put these cuffs on me. Cloud storage, sent to the state police, FBI, every local news station within 200 miles. He paused. "And a few lawyers I still know who specialize in civil rights violations." Brewster's face went pale. "You're bluffing," he whispered, but there was no conviction in it. "You can check if you want," Sam said calmly, "but I'd say you've got maybe 30 minutes before the first knock on your door." By Monday morning, Millstone Ridge was full of people who didn't wear the local uniform. State investigators, federal agents, reporters with cameras setting up on street corners, interviewing townspeople who finally felt safe enough to speak. No sirens, no shouting, just quiet, methodical justice. Travis Holt was let out in handcuffs, his swagger gone. Sheriff Brewster followed an hour later, head down, silent. And the people of Millstone Ridge, people who had lived in fear for so long they'd forgotten what freedom felt like, stood on sidewalks and watched with tears streaming down their faces. Frank Dawson, his head bandaged but his spirit unbroken, stood with his arm around his grandson, and Martha stood outside the diner with her daughter on her hip, watching the federal cars roll past, and wept with relief so profound it shook her entire body. Sam left on a Tuesday, early morning, before most of the town woke. He'd given his statement, turned over all the evidence. He didn't want recognition, didn't want thanks. He just wanted to go home. But before he could leave, Martha came. She walked across the farmhouse yard where Sam was loading the last of his belongings. Bear saw her first, tail wagging, and she knelt to scratch behind his ears. "Thank you," she whispered, looking up at Sam with eyes still red from crying. "You saved us." Sam shook his head gently. "You saved yourselves," he said quietly. "Frank stood up. You stood up. All I did was give you proof that you weren't alone."
"But you didn't have to," Martha said, her voice breaking. "You could have just left." Sam looked out at the mountains, at the morning light spilling gold across the ridge. "Tried that," he said softly. "Turns out peace isn't a place you find, it's something you make." Martha hugged him then, fierce and sudden, and Sam, surprised, hugged her back. "You take care of each other," she said, looking at Bear. "Always do," Sam replied. They drove out of town together as the sun climbed higher, warm light flooding through the open windows. Bear sat in the passenger seat, head out the window, ears flapping in the wind. Sam reached over and rested his hand on Bear's shoulder. "Good boy," he said quietly. "You did good, Bear. Real good." Bear's tail thumped against the seat. In the rearview mirror, Millstone Ridge grew smaller, the mountains cradling it like hands folded in prayer. Ahead lay open roads, quiet farmland, and the promise of a peace that Sam had finally earned, not by running from the fight, but by finishing it. Behind them, a town learned what so many had forgotten, that silence doesn't protect evil, only truth does. That courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it stands quietly and says, "No more." And that miracles don't always come with thunder. Sometimes they come on 4 legs and a faithful heart. Sometimes they come through a man who never stopped believing that right still mattered. Sometimes they come when one person decides that enough is enough. The truth will set you free. And in Millstone Ridge, West Virginia, on a quiet Sunday morning in a little diner that smelled of coffee and hope, it finally did. If this story touched your heart, we'd be deeply honored if you'd subscribe to Silent Paws and Brave Hearts. Every story we share is a tribute to the quiet heroes among us, the veterans who still stand for what's right, the loyal companions who never leave our side, and the everyday people who find courage when it matters most. Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a reminder of what true strength looks like. Share this with someone who needs to remember that one person, one faithful heart, can still change the world. We'll see you in the next story. Until then, hold your loved ones close, stand up for what's right, and never underestimate the power of truth spoken quietly but firmly. God bless.